The Department of Civil Engineering is conducting a webinar on the topic, Computational Approach to Structural Dynamics. I am profusely overjoyed to introduce the resource person of the day, Dr. Hridya P., Research Associate at Department of Civil Engineering, Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. Currently working for an ISRO-sponsored project titled Analysis of Polymer Nanocomposites Using Non-Local Theories. She did her PhD at IIT Madras. She secured a silver medal for winning first position during her post-graduation at NIT Roorkela. Her areas of interest are structural dynamics and fluid structure interactions. On behalf of the college, as well as the Department of Civil Engineering, I take this opportunity to welcome the resource person of the day, Dr. Hridya P. Hearty welcome to you, ma'am. I also welcome all
Thank
the
you.
faculty members of distinct institutions, as well as the participants for joining with us for the webinar. Before starting with the session, I invite the head of the Department of Civil Engineering, Mrs. Priya Grace Itiaip, to talk a few words. Over to Priya, Miss.
Okay, thank you, Lakshmi. Respected Dr. Hridya, faculty members from other institutions, and the faculty members and students of Mahaguru Institute of Technology, a very good morning to all of you. We are about to start our program, and I'm glad to see that so many of you have managed to join us for this program on time, actually. We are honored to have Dr. Hridya as our resource person for today's webinar, and we are extremely grateful to her for setting apart some time, actually her valuable time for us for conducting this, for helping us in conducting this program, and for choosing this topic, which is actually not very much familiar for most of us. So actually, I feel it is a good opportunity for those who are interested in the structural field and particularly in dynamics to get such an opportunity. And you are such a veteran in this area. From your work I have seen, I have read, and you have done a considerable amount of work on this topic. So it is good for us actually. And finally, I hope this session will help in shedding some light in this given topic and we become aware of the latest developments in this area. And hopefully it ignites some interest in the young minds of the audience. Actually, that is the purpose of all these webinars, to create some interest and to encourage some young people to do research in this area, particularly these kind of areas where many of us would not prefer to, thinking that it is difficult. Okay, so I hope ma'am will be able to put it across in an easy way, in such a way that we actually feel that yes, it is possible to do some work in this area. Okay, I will not take much time because we are actually short timed over here. I'll end up my words. Thanking you all on behalf of the Mahaguru Institute of Technology once again. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Participants, your active participation is important throughout the session. You can enter your queries and comments in the chat box, which will be answered at the end of the session by Hridya ma'am. All participants are requested to mute your microphone so that we can start the session. Once again, I welcome you all. Thank you. Over to Hridya ma'am.
Yeah, good morning to one and all. I'm very happy that I got this opportunity to share my little knowledge to you people. And in this occasion, I would like to appreciate or congratulate Miss Priya, HOD of Civil Engineering, MIT, and Suji, Miss Suji, Assistant Professor, MIT, Civil Engineering Department, for conducting this event and their effort to make this webinar, like, even though even in in virtual platform, right? So I'm once again I'm thanking you so much for giving me such an introduction and all. So let us go for the presentation. You can anybody can see this? Can anyone?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah. You can see my screen, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So today I'm going to present on computational approach to structural dynamics. So here I would like to cover first an introduction, that like how what is dynamic, or how the dynamic load, some examples, and how it is different from a static analysis, how we can perform a dynamic analysis. How it is different from a static analysis, and how we can idealize a dynamical system, and how we can perform a dynamical analysis. And here I'm emphasizing in this talk more on a multi-degree of freedom system. That means higher order systems, dynamical systems, so which require numerical techniques, actually computational approach, to get the response. The dynamical behavior of these large order complex structures, dynamical structures, require high fidelity finite element models. That is a numerical technique to resolve the problem. So what I meant that closed form solutions are not available, or it is very difficult to obtain or derive this analytical solutions for these kind of large ordered systems. So that we have an alternative approach, that is a numerical technique. So one of the most popular method is the finite element method. And also we know that dynamic means it which varies with time, right? So we will have at each instant of time we will have the corresponding response as well. So find out that we have to do an integration, right, over the time. So we need to adopt some numerical approach for that as well. So this is a generalized approach. The time integration scheme I'm going to introduce, but you might be knowing these things. Newmark beta method. These are just introduction. I'm just going to present for this subject, and later on I'm moving on to some advanced topic. Like first is model analysis, but that is not advanced one. It's a conventional approach to make more computational efficiency in the dynamical analysis. I will explain it in the coming slides. And another thing is model order reduction techniques. That is like it is also well developed, and it's used by people for a long time. So this is also not well advanced, and I will introduce why this is important, model order reduction, and what are the techniques required for model order reduction. And then I'm going to share my work, some part of my work, PhD work, which is related to stochastic reduced order modeling of dynamical systems and FSI system. But here I am mentioning only the dynamical system. So what is stochastic? That you might be knowing that the things which are not deterministic, right? Some randomness will be there in the loading, either in the loading or in the properties, material properties. So it can vary, right? It have some randomness in. If we are considering that, we'll get a more accurate model, mathematical model, and if we'll solve that, we'll get more accurate result or accurate behavior of the dynamical system. So I'm introducing a concept, stochastically parameter dynamical system, and how we can reduce using the techniques which I'm going to explain in order to obtain a reduced order model. And finally, I will conclude with the major observations from the study. So the introduction, we all knew that dynamic loads means which varies with time. So if we want to design a high-rise building, multi-story building, we need to consider the effect of the wind, which is varying with time. Similarly, earthquake, that is also long duration or short duration earthquake are there. So we need to consider that also. It is also depending upon time, will vary with time. Also, some offshore structures which are subjected to wave loads, and so on. Some lists are going on, right? And in day-to-day life also, we are having, we are going across with this oscillations, right? If we walk, our hands will oscillate, right? And also, without vibration, how can we hear, right? So these are all, our vibrations are a part of our life actually. So in this topic, we are dealing with the structures, dynamical structures, which are subjected to dynamical loads, and how we can find the response or the dynamical behavior, how it will behave with the dynamical loading. And now, what is the difference with the static analysis? How we can do a dynamic analysis? When a beam is subjected to a static loading, what will happen? It will deflect. But the force remain constant throughout a time. Suppose we are considering a time for t, 0 to t or t0 to t1, let's say. So at that particular range of time, the force will be constant throughout the time. So the response also constant. So how we can calculate the response? With the help of equilibrium equations, static equilibrium equations, and force displacement relationship, or the constitutive relationship, and compatibility conditions. If the system is indeterministic in nature, we have to go for a compatibility conditions. So using this, we can find out the response, which is also not varying with the time. But in dynamic case, what will happen when the beam is subjected to dynamic load? But what will happen? The beam will vibrate, and the response will be looking like, sorry, not the response, the force is, this is showing force versus time. So with respect to time, the force is also varying. These are all, everyone is knowing this, but still I'm just telling this. So because of this variation, what will happen? The response will also vary, right? So can we solve this as a static problem by considering each time instance, like T0, forces T0, forces T1, and forces T2 up to forces T, and calculate separately as a static problem? The answer is no. Why? Because we need to consider the acceleration of the system as well. Here you see, for the static problem, we don't have any acceleration because the force is not varying, response is not varying, the displacement is not varying, so the velocity and acceleration also not there at all. But for the dynamical case, response is varying with time, so which means there is a velocity variation and also some acceleration. So that acceleration we have to
Ma'am,
consider.
can I interrupt you? The slide is not changing. You're still in the first slide.
This is the slide number 4 actually.
No, ma'am. We can see the slide number 1. Now it's changing to slide number 4. But
Oh, okay. Maybe I need to share it. It's fine right now.
Yes,
Hello?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So what I'm saying that we need to consider the inertial effect. We all know that if some mass is subjected to some acceleration, it will oppose that, right? The dynamic, that force it will oppose. So we need to consider that also into account. What I mean to say that if that inertial effect is so significant that which will equilibrate the external force, we need to consider that as well in the equilibrium equation. Otherwise, if it is not that significant, then we can do it. Even if the load is, rate of loading is very fast, we can solve as a static problem. So how we can idealize this physical dynamical system? Generally, we have first case, a simple case I'm showing, it's a single degree of freedom system. That means only one mass is subjected to a force, dynamical force, F of t, which is having a response x of t. And so any structure, any mass will have its own stiffness property, like that is represented by a spring, that is K, and also some energy dissipation mechanism also involved in it. So that is denoted as a D here. So, sorry, C here, it's not written here, sorry. So this is a damping, right? So we can, using D'Alembert principle or variation approach, I'm not going to in that how to derive and all. So we can model, or we can idealize this as the physical dynamical system as a mass stiffness damper system, and using any principle, we can get the Newton's second law of motion if we are using D'Alembert principle. So we can derive the equation of motion for a single degree of freedom, like mx double dot of t plus cx dot of t plus kx of t equal to f of t. So this mx double dot of t will contribute the inertial force, cx dot of t will with the damping force, and kx of t is the potential force, the stiffness, elastic force, which all will oppose the external force f of t. But in the case of a multi-degree of freedom system, what will happen? We will have more than one mass. Suppose nowadays people are dealing with high fidelity or large ordered systems having lakhs of degree of freedom actually. So here I am showing a 6 degree of freedom system model. So it is idealized as a mass lumped into each floor actually, and these columns have some stiffness and some internal damping also taken in. So the third one is a equivalent model for that. So we can represent this also using the same formula, but here we need to understand that where M, C, K are the, in bold letters, capital letters I am represented, it is a matrix actually, because this will be having a size of how many degrees of freedom we have, that many number of, that is the size, that will be the size of this matrices. And x double dot of t is the acceleration, x of t is the velocity, x dot of t is velocity, x of t is the response, which are all vectors, and f of t is also vector. So this is at a particular time t. Okay. So what I want to emphasize is that if we are mathematically, we can model like this. So this is a second order ordinary differential equation. So what we need to do, we need to solve this second order ODE, right? So I have already mentioned, if one have a model having a large number of degrees of freedom of the order of lakhs or 1 million, so how can he model? So or the system is very complex. It is subject to some, suppose it is a multi-physics problem, or it is subject to some complex dynamical force. So it will be very difficult to derive an analytical solution or closed form solution to get the response. So we are dealing with a numerical technique. So that is finite element model, finite element technique. What we are doing is that other techniques are also there, but out of which, for the solid mechanics problems and for this kind of dynamical system, finite element method has been proven to be the best or popular method. People are widely used this method actually. So these have a lot of advantages. Actually, what we are doing with the finite element technique is that first we are discretizing, or we are making some parts, equal number of parts of the whole structure. Actually, we are dividing it into a number of elements, actually the whole structure. Then in each element we are assuming a displacement solution according to the governing equation, or using the variation approach. That is the starting point of any problem. So using variation approach, we can derive the boundary conditions and the governing equation. So according to the governing equation, we can assume a displacement solution at each element and at each node. So these elements will connect through a node. So each node will have some degrees of freedom. If that is depending upon our we can simplify whatever, depending upon the problem, maybe 2D or 3D or 1D as well we can do. If suppose a beam model, we can have a transverse displacement as well as the rotation. So 2 degrees of freedom per node will be having. So suppose we have a large number of elements, so that many plus 2 number of nodes, then into 2 will be, the higher order system will be having large ordered finite element model. That mesh will be a size of order of lakhs by lakhs. So what I am saying to that, so this, we need to solve these metrics actually, this many metrics, this size metrics, to get the response. But analytically it is not possible. That's why numerical modeling we are going. So whatever it is, we know that dynamical system means we need to solve the problem at each time instant. So this is a method, time integration method I'm just mentioning here for solving ODEs. So This is a generalized method, so we can use both for linear and nonlinear dynamical systems. So this is the advantage of this method. And also we have some explicit time integration scheme and implicit time integration scheme. Explicit means the problem which we can solve, the response at t, the ith time instant will not depend upon ith time instant. So I minus 1 time instant of velocity or the acceleration, if we know the previous steps response or the response quantities, we will able to calculate the response at the current step. But implicit means the current step response is also depending upon that time steps acceleration and velocity as well. So these are the methods actually, and we need to, whatever it is, if we employ a time integration scheme, primary factor we need to do that. Like in this we need to understand how we can choose the delta t. Delta t means the time step. That we need to take care. So if we are ready choosing a small delta t, the time step is very small, the accuracy will be more actually. It will close to the analytical solution. The response will be more close to show the original behavior of the dynamic system. But the computationally it will be huge. It will be prohibitively expensive if one is choosing a delta t very small. So we need to have a balance between these two. Okay, so the efficiency is more important, and also we'll in adopting the numerical technique, this time integration method, we'll have some errors. That is mainly like round off error. That means we are rounding off to the nearest integer, so that will lead some errors. And instability, that means if some error will be there at one particular time instant, it will accumulate, it will propagate to other time instants. So there will have some instability in the analysis. So that also we need to take care of this approach. One of the time integration technique is Newmark beta method. Here this is an implicit method, but one can convert it to as an explicit method. So some standard textbooks, the procedures are available. So here it is showing that x1 dot is a velocity at time instant t1, so which is related to time instant velocity at time instant t0, and also acceleration at t0, acceleration at that t1 time instant. And similarly, displacement is also shown here. Here gamma and beta, two variables are there, two parameters or two constants are there. These gamma is related to the linear variation of acceleration at both the time instants with that of the velocity, and also beta is the same linear variation of the acceleration at both the time instants with respect to the displacement, right? So this gamma and beta, how we will choose? There are lot of criteria are there. So I'm taking like if gamma equal to half, beta equal to 1/4, this will known as constant average acceleration method. That means throughout the analysis we can have a acceleration is constant throughout the time step, throughout our range of time. So this is a unconditionally stable scheme actually. That means at whatever delta t if we are taking, h is I'm denoting it here it as h. H is the time step actually. So whatever delta t or h we can choose, high, large or small or whatever it is, the solution will converge. That means it is unconditionally stable. But accuracy, if for large h, the behavior will not be much accurate actually. So we have another thing, that is acceleration is varying linearly if we are choosing beta equal to 1/6. Okay, so this is but this have one condition, that it is conditionally stable. That means the delta t by t or h by t should be less than or equal to 0.55. Here t is the time period, natural time period of the dynamical system. So one should have delta h at least equal to or lesser than the natural period into 0.55. I think √3 by pi or something. So this is the Newmark beta. method. And how we can choose this H, that is very important. So it is depending upon some factors here. So I already told you that this is a generalized method. We can adopt for linear as well as non-linear problems. So here the mainly H is depending upon three factors. One is rate of variation of the applied loading, F of t. Okay. Then if any nonlinearity is there in the dynamical system, like parametric nonlinearity in the stiffness or in damping, it is also depending upon that. And obviously it is depending upon the natural period of vibration, T. So if the system is linear and it's a simple loading case, then we can only have one condition, that is depending upon natural period of vibration. So generally H by T is less than or equal to 0.1 will be a optimal, or this is a very good approximation. We can choose H or delta T equal to 0.1 times T or lesser than that. Then we will get a converged solution as well as accurate solution. Okay. So here I just mentioned about how we'll idealize the dynamical system, and once we get the equation of motion, then how we can solve it using numerical techniques, right? But I have already told, if we have a large ordered system, we need to solve these each equation at each time step, right? If suppose we have the mass and stiffness matrix of size lakhs by lakhs, then that matrix we need to solve. That one advantage of finite element method is that using this we'll get the ordinary differential equation will convert into an algebraic equation actually. So it is easy to solve, but that metric size is a big factor, right? So in order to avoid, suppose we have n number of degrees of freedom, the size of the matrix will be n by n, and the response will have n by 1. F of t is also n by 1. So we need to solve that many times throughout the time. Time is varying from 0 to say t1. So throughout the time steps, if we are we want to have more accurate result, we will choose delta t is lesser than t times 0.1. So we need to solve at that many time ranges, right? These big large ordered system. So it will be computationally prohibitive, right? So one conventional way is that we can represent the physical coordinate response in the physical coordinate, that is x of t, in a model coordinate. Model coordinate means in the model domain actually. So that how we can project the model coordinate response into some basis function. That means here the basis function is nothing but the eigenvectors. Phi is a mode shape of the system natural. Once we get the problem, like eigenvalue problem, if you solve, we will get the natural frequency as well as the mode shapes. So mode shape acting as the basis function. This is orthogonal, that and all we know. So if we'll project this z into this orthogonal subspace, we will get x of t. Suppose what I'm mean to say that suppose we are interested to only first few modes, right? If there is some force, but that force is, let's say, p sine omega t, that omega is a frequency, exciting frequency. So we are interested only to a range of frequency which is coming, which is near to this forcing frequency, right? So we need to consider only that many number of modes. Okay, so we have k and m have n by n metrics, but the full eigenvalue problem, no need to solve this full n by n eigenvalue problem. We need to solve only to get m number of modes, which is the dominant modes, which is contributing the response. Actually, the final behavior of the physical problem is dominated with these many number of modes only, m modes. So this phi will be having n by m. N is the number of degrees of freedom and m is the number of modes, where m is far lesser than n. Okay, so phi will be having a metric size of n by m, and z is also response in the model coordinate, not in the physical coordinate. So the size of z will be m by 1. So we will get, or we will get x of t as n by 1, right? So this is the main advantage of model analysis. And also using this, we can using the m dominant modes, we can superpose this, right? This is a linear problem, so we can do that. And another advantage is that we can represent the system matrices, mass, stiffness, and damping in model coordinate. That is mg, cg, and kg. Also the forcing. So this will be having size m by m only, and is also uncoupled actually. It is diagonalized. Okay, so that is very quickly we can solve. Now we have platform MATLAB, Matrix Laboratory. So in that it is built to solve matrices actually. So it is very easy to solve if we are changing the coordinate system into physical to the model coordinate. The system will be having in the model coordinate domain, so that there is uncoupled and that is diagonalized. So it is easy to solve. So this is the advantage of model analysis. And also I am introducing, still we have some difficulty here in the x of t equal to phi into z of t, this formula. Here phi is having size of n by m. But why we need to, again what I am saying, that we can reduce this model order by considering only few degrees of freedom actually. Suppose a system having n number of degrees of freedom, and no need to consider all those, only whatever the problem of interest. So suppose we are solving a cantilever beam. So at cantilever beam substituted tip load at the end, dynamic load at the end, obviously we want to consider the tip node, right? The displacement at the node will be, that node will be the maximum. So that is the main, we need to consider that degree of freedom, and also some other degrees of freedom as well. So no, we can have a small set of degrees of freedom, let's say a number of degrees of freedom, that is far lesser than the n number of degrees of freedom. So again we can have a reduction in calculating this. So that I am going to show here, model order reduction technique. So this is a schematic I am showing, just showing this is a full order system, the blue color it is showing, and this is discretized using finite element measures. You can see here it's a very high fidelity. See, this is meshed with large number of degrees of freedom, but one can have only these number of degrees of freedom. One can keep this, retain this in the reduced order model, and can do an analysis, and we will get exactly the same behavior as this. I mean, we will get this and we can transform it back to this full order model actually, using a transformation matrix. So this is another way to reduce the computational effort. So for that we have some techniques in order to reduce this thing. Why we need a model order reduction technique? One thing is, if we have high fidelity model, then we can, if you want to solve this, we have to do an eigenvalue analysis, that is for sure. But to do a time integration analysis, it will be computationally very effective, efficient, or computationally less effort if we are considering the reduced order model. Okay, and also another reason is that if one is doing an experiment, so experiment maybe they can have only some accelerometer they can keep in only for some few masses, right? Few degrees of freedom. Maybe rotational degrees of freedom they cannot capture in the experiment. So if they want to get that response, they can correlate with the finite element model. If we have a full order finite element model, and this experimental model is considered as a reduced order model, and we have a relationship, or I mean this represents an equivalent system, or we have a transformation matrix to relate these two, so one can get the rotational degrees of freedom in the experimental way, or whatever degrees of freedom which cannot capture using this, or we can conduct a correlation study using this techniques. So a lot of techniques are there. Already some books are given actually. Some are Boolean reduction, dynamic condensation, system equivalent reduction expansion process, and so on. Here I have used system equivalent reduction expansion process in my study. Why? Because Guyan condensation means it is related to, it is also known as static condensation. That means it is considering only stiffness metrics. It is not considering the mass metrics or initial effect. It is not considering to make the reduced order model. So always it will show a high value of the natural frequency of the reduced order model. It will overpredict this thing. So it is not taking into account the mass effect. And dynamical condensation, it is taking the mass effect, but wherever if we want only one natural mode, if somebody is interested only in one natural mode, then dynamical condensation will be good. But if we want a certain range of natural frequency of the dynamical system, then one can have system equivalent reduction expansion process. This is we can a CREP technique we can use for both the reduction and expansion as well. These two are also we can use, but this is the more accurate and most widely used technique actually. So the basic idea of this model order reduction is that I have already told. First, what we are doing, we have full order system, that is n number of degrees of freedom. We are just splitting into active degrees of freedom or master degrees of freedom and deleted degrees of freedom or slave degrees of freedom. Here we are retaining in the reduced order model only the axial active degrees of freedom, and we can create a transformation matrix T, which is related to which is used to relate the Xn or full order system into reduced order system. So this is the general transformation matrix we need to derive, right? So using that transformation, we can obtain the reduced system matrices, mass matrix, stiffness matrix, as well as the damping matrix. Damping, we know we have classical or Rayleigh damping, like proportional damping, or we have non-classical damping as well. For non-classical damping, we need to do different kind of analysis. That means the things are not like, it's not proportional to mass and stiffness, right? So some other approaches, metrics will be metrics will not be asymmetric in nature. So we need to adopt some other mathematical approaches. And once we have this system matrices, we can have a reduced order eigenvalue. We can solve reduced order eigenvalue problem and obtain the natural frequency and the mode shapes. Then we can match with the full order system. So how we can obtain the transformation matrix in the CREP technique, using a CREP technique. So as already discussed, we are splitting into active degree of freedom and deleted degree of freedom. So that is Xn. And also in model domain, we can represent using like phi into Z, right? This physical coordinate and the model coordinate relationship. And here phi n, again I am splitting into phi A and phi D. That's the mode shape corresponding to active degree of freedom and mode shape corresponding to deleted degrees of freedom. But the number of modes, we are keeping only m modes. So here size of phi A is A by m, size of phi D is D by m. A plus D equal to n actually. So Z is m by 1. Z is the response of the model coordinate. So we are taking only the first part of active part of it. So Xa is equal to phi A into Z, and Z we are calculating like this, that like we are inversing this phi A. Maybe A is the number of active degrees of freedom and m is the number of modes considered. So three cases are there: A equal to m, A lesser than m, or A greater than m. So A equal to m will be the most accurate, this is represent the more realistically equivalent model actually, if A equal to m. So if that is the case, inverse will be easy. Otherwise, we have to do a general pseudo inverse, that is phi Ag into Xa. And once we obtain phi Ag, we can substitute here. So phi A transpose, phi A inverse into phi A transpose. Phi Ag is that actually. Then we can substitute back into the equation here. Xa equal to this, Xn equal to this. Substituting here, we will get the transformation matrix, that is phi n into phi Ag. T is a transformation matrix. Once we obtain the transformation matrix, we can get the system matrices, reduced order system matrices Ma and Ka. Then we can easily solve the solve for the response. I mean, do the time integration analysis, the this the reduced order model. So what are the advantages of this SERP technique? Here, the eigenvalues of the reduced system always equal the eigenvalues of the full system for the modes of interest written in the model. I have already told, if suppose we are considering only m number of modes, then it is easy to represent using SERP. Here, the reduced order model also will give us exactly same as the full order system's natural frequencies. And also, the modes that are preserved in the reduced model may be arbitrarily selected from those modes of interest in the original model. So what I'm saying that we can arbitrarily choose the number of modes. Maybe we have 10 number of degrees of freedom. We have 10 modes as well, right? Modes, 10 natural frequencies. Maybe we can keep only 3 modes, maybe first 3 modes or last 3 modes or in between some 3 modes. So, but whatever modes we are keeping, we will get exactly same as the full order model's natural frequency. And eigensolution of the reduced system is exact and does not depend on the location or number of points preserved in the reduced order model. That means I have written again here, the selection of active degrees of freedom is also arbitrary. That means how many number of degrees of freedom we should keep in the reduced order model, that is also arbitrary actually. Actually speaking, this is depending upon the problem of interest. So whatever it is, we can choose any number of degrees of freedom. We will get exactly same as the natural frequency of the full order system. I will show through one example. Here, I have considered a cantilever beam subjected to tip load, dynamic load f of t. So here I have discretized into 5 elements. Each node will have 2 degrees of freedom. One U1 represent the transverse degrees of freedom. V1 is the rotation. Okay. So these are the geometrical and properties considered. And here we can see 600 is the external frequency. So what I want to say that I did one. What I did is I did natural frequency analysis, eigenvalue problem I solved for the full order system and SERP model as well. So this is if FRF, that is frequency response function graph, it is shown here. So we can see that we have 10 number of modes actually, right? So these are 10 modes. Peaks are represent the natural frequency of the FRF. Peaks are the natural frequency of the system. But I have considered 2 different cases. First is I considered only first 3 modes and first 3 degrees of freedom. That is U1, V1 and I kept U1, U2 and U3 actually. Then I considered first 3 modes. So using that, actually I have a M and K is 10 by 10, but I reduced it as 3 by 3, right, in the reduced order model, and I got first 3 modes, 1, 2, 3, whatever modes I considered in the reduced order model, that is exactly same as the full order model. And also I have tried in a different way, that is I have kept 4, 5, 6 modes, 4, 5, 6, and I have taken first 3 degrees of freedom. Rotational degree of freedom also I have considered for the reduced order model. So here you can see that the 4, 5, 6 modes are exactly matched with that of the full order model. So this is showing the accuracy of the SERP model. So this is to demonstrate the advantage of SERP. I have shown this small model, and so what I said that we need to do a large ordered. We need to analyze. Suppose one want to do a large ordered dynamical system. We can have we can do model truncation using model analysis. I mean, we need to understand how many modes, dominant modes we need to keep in the reduced order model, and also what are the degrees of freedom, right? That is arbitrary. If one is interested to do only natural frequency analysis, then the degrees of freedom selection is arbitrary. Otherwise, if one want to find out the response, then we need to choose depending upon the problem, objective of the problem actually. And also next time just introducing a advanced topic, but these are also done by people like considered a stochastically parametered or stochastic linear dynamical system. That means here the mass, stiffness, and damping force, everything is random. This is a fully stochastical linear system, and I can represent like this. That means this is also a function of theta. Theta is a random variable or random field. That means it is homogenized, but it will vary. Like it's we cannot predict this is the value. Like E equal to, suppose n smallest is equal to 210 gigapascal. We can say, right, for the steel, but some variation will be there. That is randomness. Okay. So if we are considering that also, the problem will be computationally, analysis become computationally very cumbersome actually. So we can adopt a reduced order model for this stochastic dynamical system as well. So only the change is that we need to consider at each random variable, we can generate. Suppose I'm saying if Young's modulus is random, that means suppose it is following some distribution, okay, Gaussian, or you might be learned in some mathematics, right? Gaussian or log normal distribution. Some distribution will follow. So we can create some 10,000 samples like that. So at that many deterministic analysis we have to do. Okay. So this I am just showed in terms of theta as well. Okay. And what I am saying to going to say that this theta, how we can quantify this theta. One is, suppose the system will have input uncertainty, it will propagate, and finally the output also will be a random in nature. So we need to consider the statistical quantities for the response, right? So one traditional method is that, or benchmark method, we can say Monte Carlo simulation. That means the deterministic problem, we will generate n number of samples, maybe 10,000 or 20,000. Large number of samples we can create for the input random variable, and we can propagate it through the equations. Like suppose we have K is random, MCF, everything is determinate. Suppose, let's say for the simplified case, so only K is random, so it will propagate. I mean, then phi will also random, and omega lambda is also random, and finally X will be random, or Z will be random, then X will be random, right? So it will propagate, the uncertainty will propagate. So we need to solve the deterministic problem that many times. So it is also computationally very expensive. So another approach is developed, that is polynomial chaos expansion technique. So which using this we can represent the random variables. Maybe 10,000 variables are there in MCS, right? So that we can represent only 10 or 15 like that. With that we will get the surrogate model, that is known as surrogate models. That means a reduced order model in the stochastic dimension. So we will get that as well. So here I'm just shown the same cantilever beam which I showed for SEREP. I considered E is normally distributed. So with 10% coefficient of variation. So what I just performed a random analysis only, not the SEREP analysis. With MCS and PCE, MCS 10,000 runs has been run, actually the deterministic runs, 10,000 samples I have generated. So log normal distribution. Okay, so it took this many seconds. But for PCE only, we need to run only 3 deterministic runs. Then obviously computational time will be lesser. So my thesis was combine these two techniques, PCI and PCE, or the SEREP I have extended in the stochastic dynamical system using PCE to create a reduced order stochastical dynamical system. So this is known as PCE based SEREP algorithm I had developed. So what I did that SEREP formulation using PCE. So I mean, in terms of each collocation points, I have told PCE, polynomial case expansion, that will have we can generate some collocation points depending upon the input distribution. Okay. At that points only we need to solve the system. So that represents here Xi. So we can have the same procedure to obtain the coordinate, all the transformation metrics and the reduced order model here. Okay, MA, CA, AKA, FA represent the matrices and vectors and force vectors, everything in the reduced order model. So we will get this. Once we obtain this, we can do analysis. Okay, so I have just showing my some results, my work results. For that, I have created 3 different, that is PCE full model, stochastic full order dynamical system, and another is M2, that is PCE SCREP model, and M3 is the to compare or to validate this M1 and M2 with M3. That is the full model. MCS is the benchmark method. I have already told that there we are generating n number of samples to represent that input distribution properly, so that it will propagate like as we discussed like earlier, right? So M3 is the MCS. So first I did random eigenvalue analysis, then I did the nodal responses I find out using model analysis. So this is a airfoil NACA 0012 airfoil. So in COMSOL 1 software, commercial software, FE software, I have modeled using COMSOL actually this aerodynamically forced wing-like structure. Actually, it is not aerodynamically forced, but it is not a two-way coupled problem. I consider it as a structural problem actually. This is not a fluid structure interaction problem. Okay, so to get the loading, like I just applied P sin omega t, but that omega is the flutter frequency. Flutter frequency means the where it like resonance. It should not happen the resonance, right? So that flutter frequency I found out using some cross-study aerodynamic approach and all. So that means where this curve will change the sign from negative to positive or positive to negative. That point, the velocity corresponding to that point will give us the flutter velocity or flutter frequency. Okay. And first, what I did is I have obtained flutter frequency as some 0.9833 or something, and I have found out the natural frequency. First 10 modes I have found out. So frequency in hertz is represented here. Okay. So why I selected is only first 10 modes are enough to capture the dynamics actually. Okay. Deterministically, this thing is the non-dimensional frequency is 0.98. I'm not remembering exactly the frequency, but it is actually within 10, I think 7 or 8 in between that I'm remembering. So it is first 10 modes are enough to capture the dynamics of this problem more accurately. Okay, but I have considered 3 different models. Okay, I have how many 3? I think 30,102 degrees of freedom I have modeled. I mean this is a very fine mesh, but out of that I have considered only 50 degree of freedom and first 50 modes. 3 models I create, 3 reduced order model. Then 30 modes and 30 degree of freedom. These are all arbitrarily chosen. Okay, and A equal to M equal to 10. First 10 modes and first or arbitrarily selected 10 degrees of freedom. So here I have considered both mass density and E. Young's modulus are log normally distributed with coefficient of variation 10%. And for the collocation points, 16 collocation points, and we have some polynomial KS expansion terms. So that only 10 terms is required. So here we are running 20,000. Okay, but we need to run only 16 only for the PCE that we need to consider. Okay. So this is showing the mean. Mean means mean of the response. Okay, tip response. Near to tip, I have plotted the mean. So we can show that M1, M2 are exactly matched with the M3. That is the benchmark MCS. So M2 is the reduced order model. Okay. Here also, this is the extreme value stress. That is near to the fixed end, cantilever fixed end. This is showing a PDF, that is probability density function. That means these are the stress value at t equal to maximum value of stress at some particular time t, right? 20,000 samples or 16 samples I have showed. So out of that, what is the maximum of stress value? I just saved in as a vector and plotted here. So how probable is this actually? So that is showing here PDF. So around 3 to 3.5, the maximum probable of occurring the stress is in this range actually. From this we can observe that. So what I want to say that this method, PC based SERP model, is exactly able to match with that of the result of that of the full order system, that is M3. But here the third figure is what I have shown. I have compared the three different models. In a deterministic way, we thought first 10 modes are enough to capture the dynamics, but that is not the case. This PDF is not able to predict this model 2C. Within 10 modes is not enough actually. So the uncertainty is affecting the natural modes as well. So we need to keep at least 30 modes in the reduced order model. Okay, this is some results I have obtained, and I want to show the computational time comparison of this model. So what I want to say that this model 2A, that is 50 by 50, I have considered. It took only 4.4 minutes to complete the analysis. Or I am interested in some tip response or some other response at some other points. So only we need to consider those, and selecting the modes are very important. That is depending upon the external frequency. Okay. So by keeping only 50 by 50, I have 30,102 by 30,102, but reduced it to 50 by 50, and I got exactly same as that of the full order model, which is M3. That took 4.5 days to finish. So we can observe that the reduced order model is like 1 by 36 times better than M1 and 1 by 1472 times better than M3. Okay, this is I want to mention. So with this I am concluding. So what I have considered here is a linear dynamical system. Analysis of this dynamical system has been considered. And I have told that for large ordered system, complex dynamical system, closed form solutions are difficult to obtain. So we are going for a numerical approach, that is finite element method is used to analyze the problems. And also we have considered, we have gone through some techniques, model order reduction techniques for both the deterministic as well as the stochastically parametered linear dynamical system. Okay. So for that, we have adopted a twin reduction based approach. That means one is SERP and PCE approach to develop a reduced order model. And this model, PCE based SERP model, is able to capture the dynamics of the structure reasonably accurately and efficiently, computationally very efficiently. So thank you. If you have any queries, I am happy to answer that.
Okay, participants, you can ask your queries and comments.
Yeah, before any queries come, I would like to just take this opportunity to just tell Dr. Hridya, you have done a beautiful job in actually explaining the basics of both finite element as well as dynamics, okay? So it is actually very helpful when you come from the basics, especially for people who are exactly rightly not in touch with the subject. This kind of basic explanations help a lot so that we can actually follow you up to the end. Thank you very much for putting that effort in this, okay? So any queries are there, you can ask anybody.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Akash is there. Akash, why don't you ask something? Maybe he left.
Good morning,
This is
ma'am.
little advanced. I have explained. Maybe students should go through, or the teachers should go through some textbooks. Then only they might be appreciate this.
No, it was otherwise it was okay, ma'am. Only the end part was a bit. Yes, of course. I wanted
Yeah,
to ask
yeah.
how much time did you actually spend to actually carry out these studies during your PhD and all? Were you
Yeah, I have 2011 December batch I joined, and
okay?
2018 May I defended. But in between, I took some 6-month maternity leave,
Okay.
and yeah, five
Otherwise,
and a half years.
were you full time in the lab and doing all these things? Or
No. Actually, my working time is very less. I was alone with my kid. Actually,
okay.
she was just born, and so I was very difficult to manage both work life. To keep the work life balance actually, but my supervisors, they have helped me a lot in this regard actually. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, you succeeded very well, no? Then,
Yeah.
despite of all these obstacles.
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yeah. Good morning, Binoy.
My name is Binoy. Actually, I have a query that
Yeah.
you have explained about the model analysis, right?
Yes.
So I have done my MTech thesis regarding that
Okay.
model analysis and nonlinear analysis of a composite bridge. So
Non-linear analysis of composite.
composite bridge.
Oh, okay.
So I have a doubt even from that time onwards that
Okay.
when I conducted my model analysis of the bridge, I have obtained so many model frequencies,
Okay.
but my focus was on the lateral bracing of the bridge. So I've got a first model frequency. I've got the model frequency result for the fourth value. That is it so necessary that the critical frequencies should always come as the first one, or like that when we do the calculation of this dynamic analysis, right? So many
Free vibration.
yeah,
You're asking
free
vibration
vibration
analysis.
analysis.
Yeah.
Actually, we are getting a set of frequencies for 5 values, right? So
Okay.
there we consider the first model frequency as a critical value.
Yeah.
But for me, I got the fourth value of the ANSYS result as the critical value. So is there any is there any particular that always the first one should be considered as the critical frequency?
I would like to understand the degrees of freedom, what you have considered, the order of degrees of freedom, like in that brace, no, lateral brace.
Actually,
How
the
you
entire
model it?
entire bridge was subjected to free vibration.
Okay, no,
Yeah,
how you did ANSYS, right? Finite element modeling, no?
ANSYS workbench, yeah.
So what are the degrees of freedom? So it is depending upon the degree of freedom, no, the order of the degrees of freedom, right? So maybe that fourth mode will be giving the critical according to that order, or
So
like
so
you
according
yeah, you
so
have plotted,
depending
right?
on yeah
That are you remembering the shape of the mode shape, like if we are that brace
mode
fourth mode,
shape.
the mode shape, which is a
Actually,
bending dominated.
the individual brace is not taken. I have done the study for different bracing patterns in the same bridge.
Okay.
So I have done the free vibration analysis for the entire bridge, and then we are considering the movement in the shorter direction of the bridge, that is the widthwise direction, because width is weaker direction, right? So that is why the first frequency which gave the movement in the weaker direction, that was it value which I have taken as a critical value.
Okay.
So that is why I asked it didn't show the weaker first critical value in the as the first sequential order as such. When we consider the first value was not the critical value. I got
Okay,
it as
so
the
what
fourth one.
about the, are you remembering the numbers, right? First, second, and third, fourth. Fourth is giving the lesser value, we are saying.
No. The least frequency value was the first one itself.
Ah,
But for me,
okay, the critical. Okay,
critical,
answers is
yeah.
how many? Yeah, that I need to check. I'm not sure about that. Okay,
Okay, ma'am.
I'll get back to you. You can mail me, okay?
Actually, is it very particular that always the first value of the model analysis is to be taken as a critical value, or it
Yeah,
it
the
may vary?
fundamental frequency is the, we are taking the fundamental frequency as the dominant frequency for the analysis, for the free vibration analysis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, Vinay.
Any other doubts? Okay, there is another question, ma'am. Explain the sensitivity. Explain the sensitivity of eigen solutions to model parameters, and is this approach a time-consuming method or not?
Sensitivity of eigensolutions to model parameters. And is this approach to a time-consuming method or not? Sensitivity of eigensolutions to model parameters. Model parameters, what you mean? Durga, actually, is this a K stiffness matrix, all those things, right? Yeah, this is obviously sensitive to the model parameters. That is sure, right? With K and M only, we'll get the eigen values and mode shapes. So in the model analysis, it is far better to do the time integration in the model domain, not in the physical domain. What I want to say that model analysis will be more efficient. It is less time consuming actually. And obviously the model parameters are sensitive with the eigensolutions, right? If mass is increasing, the frequency will be reduced. Am I clear actually? Hope you are clear. Okay, thank you.
Hridaya ma'am,
Yes.
me Suji.
Yes, Suji, tell me.
Some idea about shear building concept.
Shear building concept, I'm not sure. I didn't work on this. I'm sorry, Suji. I will look into that and I'll let you know.
I have some doubt about that area.
Okay, I have not worked on that.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Any more doubts?
Good morning, ma'am.
Yeah, good morning, Agash.
Ma'am, I had a doubt about the new technology of using this brittle kind of reinforcements like FRP, rebars and all. It will not be ductile as steel. So what kind of approach can we take in modeling a reinforced structure with that? Because it will not take that dynamic loading with as a similar way as the steel. So it can tend to break at a shorter because the strength also varies according to the direction which the force is applying. So if any approach like having a buffer zone or a dampening material or increasing the cover or anything can help in that.
You are asking regarding a composite, right, Akash?
Correct, ma'am. Yes.
Fiber reinforced, unidirectional fiber reinforced composite material subjected to some loading, dynamical loading. So, what is happening if the loading is longitudinal direction? Then,
Ma'am,
yeah.
yes, ma'am. If it is in a longitudinal direction, steel will have a comparatively higher resistance to the frequencies and
Ah,
resistance to breaking. But in case of composite material, it will be
ah.
like it will be prone to breaking even if it has a higher tensile strength and a lower mass. It will not be stronger in the longitude in the horizontal direction,
Transverse direction. No, no,
transverse direction.
no. What I'm saying that what is your fiber? Is it steel?
No, ma'am, it is basalt fiber, it's composite fiber, basalt fiber or carbon fiber.
Carbon fiber. Okay, the matrix will be polymer something, right?
Matrix will be polymer or cement mortar matrix.
Okay. Okay. In that case, what I want to say that if it is subjected to a transverse loading, uh, generally the matrix will fail first, or the interface. Okay, interface will be the weaker zone, and if it is not a perfectly, obviously it won't be a perfectly bonded interface, right? So that interface will break actually. So why the composite actually? Why the importance of composite material? The polymer alone cannot take this much of load, right? So if you are incorporate the uh, fibers also, then it will increase in the even in the transverse direction, it will increase if you are doing a linear study, or if you are considering a failure analysis, then the failure mechanism, I think interface will fail first.
Ma'am, if we strengthen the interface with some coating or the
Yeah, yeah,
roughing agent or something.
yeah, yeah, we can do that, or
Yes.
we can introduce some nanofibers, nanomaterials, right? That nano will enhance the strength actually. Okay, so techniques are there. I'm not sure. I have to see actually, but the things are there to improve the interface bonding.
Ma'am, is there a way to use a computational means software-based analysis
Yeah,
to?
yeah, yeah. Abacus, we can use
But
abacus.
yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
But we'll have to design that interface. So
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah,
designing the
yeah. I
interface,
will tell you. Yeah, yeah. I understand now. In order to design that interface, we can have a new technique now. If one has one thing is fracture mechanics, that one need to understand that subject, fracture mechanics, and uh, we need to design accordingly. The mode one fracture, mode two fracture, some opening fracture or sliding fracture or that kind of fracture we need to understand and model in that way. Otherwise, one technique is there. Like in the fracture mechanics, the problem is that we need to have a first we need to have the crack there. Then only we can do that. Otherwise, if we don't know where is crack, whether it has initiated or not, okay, that case we have one technique, that is Cauchy zone method. Okay, please note it.
yes,
It's
ma'am.
a traction separation law. You can just Google it and read that. Okay, Cauchy zone model. We can do a Cauchy zone element. We can model Cauchy zone element in between these fiber metrics. Okay, then we can give the interfacial strength or the fracture energy, everything into that, and we can model it in Abacus software.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I had one more doubt in that, ma'am. If a same rebar of a steel material and a BFRP or glass fiber rebar is there, if we are using it in a structural member like a beam, if we
Uh,
increase the concrete cover or concrete matrix in
uh,
that BFRP compared to the steel, will it act as a dampening for the dynamic loading, or the concrete matrix will fail and hence it will make the beam part or the structural element fail prior to what the steel counterpart is having the load.
okay, the
Like,
here you're saying the volume fraction is less, right?
yes, ma'am.
So actually the dynamical problem with composite, I am not sure. Okay, only one material I have, I mean with the single material only the analysis I have performed, and I am aware of like these things. But composites in the static analysis I found, if we are increasing the volume fraction, then definitely the strength will reduce.
So,
Okay.
is there any other way we can introduce a dampening factor into such a structural member, like some isolation kind of thing, or if it is in a horizontal member or a beam member, is there any possible way of introducing a dampening?
Damping.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
dampening to dissipate energy, right?
Yes,
I need to check, Akash, actually. I'm
okay,
not
ma'am. Thank you.
that way, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Even though it is tensilely very strong, but it will
Ah,
not
yeah.
withstand the frequency or the vibration very much. It will tend to the sudden failure of the entire structure.
Oh,
Even
okay,
the mass
okay.
is very much low compared to the steel, but the thing is, this dynamic load will
Um,
not be efficiently managed in the material.
Okay, yeah. Okay, this is actually, I thank you, Agash, for giving me a new idea of thinking in a dynamical way of composite structures. I was not doing that actually. I will definitely look into this, and you just mail me. I will look into it, and if I'll get something, I will definitely I'll forward to you, share with you
Thank you
the
so much, ma'am.
materials. Okay,
Thank you so
yeah,
much. Thank you.
yeah. Please mail me, okay?
Sure, ma'am. Sure, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, the feedback form is available in the chat box. Now I call upon Suji Miss to deliver the vote of thanks, Assistant Professor of Civil Engineering Department and the MIT faculty. Over to Suji Miss.
Lakshmi,
Yes, Miss.
has Suji
I am
joined?
audible. I am audible.
Now, Suji, now you are audible. Okay.
Oh, okay, okay, ma'am. Good morning, all. Respected our chief guest, Dr. Hridya ma'am, HOD, faculty members, and dear participants. On behalf of the Department of Civil Engineering and Mahaguru Institute of Technology, I take this opportunity to propose vote of thanks to those who have directly or indirectly contributed for the successful conduct of the webinar on the topic Computational Approach to Structural Dynamics. First of all, I would like to thank the resource person Hridyama for enlightening us with valuable information. I would like to convey my heartfelt gratitude to Hridyama for explaining certain interesting things and advanced topics related to structural dynamics and degrees of freedom system. Once again, I would like to thank Hridyama for spending your valuable time with us. Thank you, ma'am. I would like to thank our principal, Dr. Manju J, for giving permission to organize the webinar. Thank you, Miss. I would like to thank our beloved HOD, Mrs. Priya Grace ETI, for all her moral support and guidance. Thank you, Miss. I express my sincere thanks to Amjit Sir of EEE Department and Nanda Kishore for providing technical support for organizing the webinar. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all the faculty members of Civil Engineering Department for their support and motivations, and all the participants who became the backbone of this section and made it a success. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Hridya ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, yeah, thank you, all of you. Actually, once again, I'm grateful to be a part of this webinar. I could able to share some knowledge with you people, and hope you understood some, you got some idea regarding this, and you can proceed further. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your valuable time. Let's wind up this session. Thank you, everyone.